Morning. It's
Hey Sid,
11:52.
when we heard about Alder, we feared the worst.
We have no time for SR's career. You must use the information in this R2 unit to help plan the attack.
Yes,
Don't help.
the R2 unit. So, what did you guys think about yesterday's little talk? Did you go back and look at the questions at hand, the world we live in? What are we going to do with it? Are we just going to be bought off like the Roman Empire? The citizens were given bread and circus, and we're given big screens and fast food. It's the same. Except there are, you know, little idiosyncrasies that are going on now. The real problem that you have to realize, it's not a problem. It's kind of the juxtaposition of realities. And that, science, string theory shows that there are all these parallel universes. There's like 8 million of me. I love the Star Trek Next Generation, where they popped out into like one of these anomalies, and there was like, and Riker was in charge, and you know, Picard was off having sex with the Borg, and up on the screen, there were like 900 million trillion enterprises, and they all. I mean, one Riker was transsexual. One was a Borg, one was a lollipop, one was a clown, one was a peach sickle, and that's the story about all of us. We're all of those things. And John Birmingham is a great example in that he is the canary in the coal mine, meaning he's got a lot of personalities. And, there's Johnny John John, John Boy, Jimmy John, Grandpa Jimmy, Hulk Jimmy John. And basically, we all have a lot of personalities. We all have all those parallel universes in us. But what psychology says is when you can amalgam all those things into your true gestalt, your true personality, your true persona that you look at the universe through and move and navigate. Because when you are just stuck in to the parallax of those individual personalities, that's schizophrenia. That's multiple personalities. That's leads us into bad character actors. That's where criminals. But we have institutionalized criminology. Our government, our institutions are all criminal enterprises. Donald Trump, he was chosen because he is like a stupid Don Corleone. And Don Jr. is Vito, and you know, and Ivanka is one of the chicks in that movie, and her husband, Garrett Barrett Larry, whatever his name is, he's basically a you know what a geek is. A geek is a person who used to be smart but ends up working at a carnival biting the heads off a chicken. You in that, like, the bearded lady, the real strong guy, the midget guy, the tall guy, and they got the geek who bites the heads off a chicken. And the chicken without a head has a higher IQ than you know Ivanka's husband. He paid $1 billion for 666 Fifth Avenue, I think. And that building, when it was built, was only worth $200 million, or something close to that. So, the whole secret to real estate is buy low, sell high. And during the worst, real estate market, moron boy, Larry, Billy, what's his name? Donnie's son-in-law, buys a building for 20 times what it's worth, while his daddy's in jail for ripping off everybody. And today or yesterday was the 10th anniversary of Lehman's going bankrupt and the starting of our economic burnout. And what did we do? We started TARP, which gave banks unlimited capital at zero interest. It's like free money. And they lent it to companies that didn't, expand their investment in the community or their factory or started employing people. They bought their stock out. Thus, the guys at Merrill Lynch got the highest, bonuses in '08 than they ever got because the federal government gave them $1 trillion. It's like there's something wrong with this. Like I was saying yesterday, 5,000 people a week die from medical care, not because they died, but because the medical care was the wrong care, or they got infected in the hospital. You know, 1 out of 8 people who walk through the door of a medical facility gets an infection. I mean, every time I walk in there, I walk in there with a hand sanitizer, and I sanitize my hands and my head and my face, every minute. And I actually go, when I go in for medical care, I look for the best doctor I can find. I hurt my leg, and I went to my general doctor who wasn't around. So I just saw somebody who was. And, my leg was getting infected. It was like the size of a volleyball. My kneecap was, and was purple and didn't look nice. Well, they had everything. I said, all I need is a prescription for oromycin. I need a shot of oromycin and oromycin, and I need you to lance this and drain it. And they wouldn't do it because they were scared, because they didn't want, because they weren't, that person wasn't capable. Not even to give me they didn't want to even give me a prescription. So I had to go to the emergency room, and I tried to go to other doctors, and they were all like, "Oh, I don't know about that." And so and by the time my leg was the size of a basketball, my kneecap was. I mean, I didn't want to lose my leg because I had diabetes. Infections, don't go good with diabetes. So I and in Roanoke, Carillion's emergency room is like, can't get there from here, meaning the big brand spanking new building. You got to go up and around and up top and a mountain and down and spiral down, and really only the guys who drive the ambulances know how to get there. So the exit, which said one way, don't go this way, but I could see the emergency room. I shot up the one way, and I went right by the bunch of cops who were, like drinking coffee and eating donuts, and I flew by them and went straight for the window of the emergency room. Right, I was going to drive right into the emergency friggin' room, but I stopped that close from going through it, and the cops came running up the hill with their guns drawn, opened up the thing, and I had already opened up the door and turned my knee towards them and started to squeeze the pus out. And 3 of the policemen vomited right there. And there was one policeman who had just gotten back from Afghanistan, and he was a medic. And so he kind of knew the story. So he sent the other cop who didn't vomit to get a wheelchair, and they got me into the wheelchair, and he rolled me straight into the triage, grabbed a doctor he knew, and said, "Take care of this guy." And if I'd gone in there, meaning the way Carillion wanted you to go, they wanted you to park in a parking garage, pay $2, go in the main thing, and then see that person, and then have them take you to this person who then would get all your information and then take you to the emergency room, and where you'd have to wait. And the emergency room was over 100,000 square feet, had no rooms. They had people, they had no beds. They had people in gurneys in the hall. The hallways were wide, and they operated people in the hallway. And so I kind of was brought in there. The triage lady said, "Oh wow, this is bad," and so she had me, get a blood panel and go to the X-ray. And both of those things were automated. A robot did it. Especially the X-ray. It was amazing. The only thing the X-ray technician did was roll me. I was in this gurney that sensed the location of my body parts, and he locked it into this place where the machine knew where everything was. Was communicating with the gurney, and then he pushed start, and all of everything came out of. It was like straight out of Star Wars, where Luke's being operated on by a robot. I mean, that's what it was for me. So that hospital had some pretty amazing technology, had some very right on people, but the people at the gatekeeping shouldn't even been working at Burger King, right? Anyway, long story short, I knew the squeaky wheel gets the thing. So I read everyone's palm and talked to everyone. And finally, a guy showed up who had been smoking outside and saw me, drive nearly through the window. And he says, "Come with me." Well, I was in a wheelchair. He rolled me to a corner. He told the nurse, "Here's a prescription, get me this stuff." And he got a Lance kit and he got, the antibiotic I needed, and he put me on a drip. And the nurse couldn't find anything. He had to go off and do it. And he had already started me on an IV drip, and the nurse put the, I had to take your blood pressure and temperature and your oxygen. So she put the blood pressure cuff over where, the IV was going in my arm, and started, hit the button, and I like ripped the hoses out of the machine and ripped the cuff off my arm, and was going to beat the crap out of her if I could have gotten out of that wheelchair, but I couldn't. The doctor came in and saw what happened, and basically said, "Nurse, hold this leg like this." And so she did, and he lanced it, and 20 gallons of pus came shooting out of my leg like a fire hose all over this nurse. And she screamed and ran out of the room. And he said, "I've been wanting to do that all day." So he lanced me, he put me on the proper thing, and he said, "You'd been sitting here for another 20 hours if, I hadn't just decided to take care of you." And he told me his story about being a major and a doctor in the Marines in Afghanistan, and all the blood and guts he had seen. And so anyway, he sent me on my way, and that cop was waiting out there and rolled me to my car. He had parked my car for me. And he rolled me down there in the chair and said, "Can you get home?" I said, "Yeah, I think I'm going to stay in a motel." So I rolled he gave me his card. "If you need anything, give me a call." So there are people who are always there, who are human, who are empathetic, and will take care of you. And that scene that we are seeing unfold with the hurricane down on the coast, and that's rolling up, I have no idea what my little campsite looks like, because the hurricane's going right over, right about now. And it's going to catch up with me where I am here near Roanoke tomorrow, and I have to have my eyes, operated on. And and no one wants to drive me home. So it'll be interesting. I'll have to drive after having my eyes operated in the middle of a hurricane. But I'll be okay. And I have no money. I actually am in a better state than most people. I have empathy for everyone down on the coast. And so where are we now? we have to realize, people are like, oh, some guys are going on about socialism and we need that. And I lived in Sweden. I lived in a lot of, social democracies, and they work pretty good. But it's people get in this nanny motif, meaning the only reason they're doing that is because those governments want to manipulate, control, and run everything. And when they're doing the good job, not a problem. When I lived in Sweden, I mean, it was amazing. I mean, Sweden paid for everything, but everyone paid 78% of whatever money they made in tax. Well, I was from America, so I was in that in between. But I stayed there a year, and I lived in a little town called Forshuga, which was between Stockholm and Gothenburg. And both those cities are great cities. I lived in both of them. And I lived there in the early '70s, so that was really great because that's when if you wanted to live in Europe, that was the time because it was quite interesting. Cold War was still going on, so the governments were doing everything they could do to keep people from being commies. Right? They could be socialists, but not commies. And in America, what gave us the middle class was the unions, the socialists, and the anarchist movement. That was like what our flavor of communism was. And because they didn't, anarchists didn't trust anybody but themselves. They were the most responsible people I ever knew. And within communities, there was a guy named Adam Purple who had this, I met him in this commune in Stockholm. And he was, old school, definitely old school. And I knew a bunch of his buddies from Washington Square. Those were the old guys who wore rumpled jackets and ties and played chess. And, that was how they made their living. And none of this exists because everyone has been enamored by the screen. All our religions are falling apart. So I used to live in Lynchburg, which is the most Christian, Jerry Falwell. Jerry Falwell was a good friend of mine. I met him. I had a buddy of mine when Lynchburg was like, before Jerry really hit the big time with his school, when it was just a little piddling thing. I had a buddy who was a plumber who owned half of downtown because nobody lived downtown. All the buildings had, were crumpled up and rotting. And he just, as a plumber would fix things and say, oh, you can't pay me. Well, yeah, how about I take over a couple of your buildings? So he owned a good chunk of downtown Lynchburg. And he was a smart guy. He knew it was going to come back someday. And there was a bar. And so he fixed up 3 buildings, right? And I helped him. I wired them and, worked with him. And so I got an apartment. And a friend of mine, she started a massage school, which I taught in. So I live right downtown Lynchburg. And I was, so he had a bar, right? And he built a bar mostly so he could have a place to eat. But he didn't want to run a bar. So I kind of ran it a little bit and helped him get it up. And then the business plan was anybody who had an idea, oh, I want to do music. Oh, I want to have poetry. Oh, I want to do this. I want to do that. And we'd let people do it. And, we'd say, okay, the rent is this, the service charge of all the facilities that we got there. But you don't own anything. You don't have anything. You pay the rent, the electric bill. And if you can't, you move out. We give you, you have to put up 3 months rent. So when you go bankrupt, we'll have enough money to take care of that place while we find another person. Well, this woman said one thing. So, everything is so Christian, so Bible Belt, but so perverted, corrupt, and disturbingly sexually perverted. And, I have a lot of friends who are gay, but that's not, to my mind, it's like, who would choose being gay? It's like biologically determined, it's like having blue eyes. And so the perverted thing is to try and oppress them and put them in jail and say what their biological, needs are or, sins, while all the time the minister is plugging the housewife or the child, So, So what I would do is whoever was running the bar, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, I would come in and I do my readings. Palms, runes, uh, um, tarot cards, astrology, all the above. And and I had a little basket out there, and I basically sat there and ate. Had a nice little glass of wine while people strolled in, and I get there at around 5, and I'd leave by 10 because by 10, if there was a crowd, it'd be too loud, blah blah blah. And if there was music, anyway. So that was my usual thing. And the money I made, there was a Holiday Inn down just a few blocks that was very nice, had beautiful rooms, had a really nice restaurant. And I would go in and check on Friday and stay Friday and Saturday. And, I just lived down the street. But I was living, in a pretty funky corner of my friend's space. And this was a very nice room. It's like, here, I like the good life. And so, but I'm not addicted to it because when I did get severely enamored working for the Desperate Lawyers for 10 years, that's when I almost died. When I gave up my connection to spirituality and the universe, and just went for the material hedonism, I was like, anyway. So, but I still enjoy, the jacuzzi room. There's nothing wrong with any of that. There's nothing wrong with our senses as long as we don't get perverted by them or distracted by them or addicted through them. So anyway, so there I was reading, and these guys from Liberty University came in, and the bar was going through a fashion. This woman came in, and she wanted to run a basic lesbian bar, down low, nobody. But if you knew anything about lesbians, and I was married to one, there are a lot of telltale signs when people are wearing lumberjack shirts, when women have kind of little mustaches, So, and when women are ultra feminine, Um, and the girls loved getting readings, and I didn't ask for anything specific, whatever you wanted to give. So I'm in there, and these guys from LU come in, and these girls were playing pool. And, they were very curvy and very attractive, but lesbians. And so the guys were like chatting them up and hitting on them and, making comments about their pool playing. And so one of the girls said, so, hey, why don't you put up or shut up? And the guy, what do you mean? And the girl said, why don't we play for stakes? And he goes, well, what stakes? And the girl said, if we win, you pay us $50. If you win, we'll take you in the bathroom and give you a blowjob. And the guy said, yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, sure. So, because these girls were attractive and curvy. So, anyway, the girls weren't playing their best, but once the guys ponied up $50, the girls took them out. Just like bing, 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 bing. Then the guys didn't even get a shot. Oh, that's not fair. I said, what? And they said, what are you talking about? We would have run the table too if we shot for. I said, okay, put up another $50. So they did. Long story short, these morons were taken for $4,000. They took every nickel they had out of the ATM across the street. And then the girls got wild. They were like drinking and having a just dandy old time. And by about 1 o'clock, and Lynchburg was not a busy town at that time, the lady who was running it said, Al, you got to get these girls out of here. And they're not going. So I said, okay. I said, there were about 8 of them. I said, girls, I have a room suite up there at the Holiday Inn, and it's right on the roof where the pool is. And I got a sliding door that goes out to the pool. So the bartender here is going to give us, you each a bottle of your preferred booze, and we're going to walk up the street, and it's 1 o'clock, no one will see us. You go up there, and you girls can have a good old time in the pool. And I'm just going to go to sleep. So, the girls come up with me, I jump into bed, they go out there and, just go at it and get really plastered. And so the about 6:37 in the morning, The sun's coming through the window, and the phone rings. And I turn over and pick it up, and it's a guy. So at this hotel, and this is a secret, wherever you stay, you tip everyone. And whatever you can afford, you tip them. Tip stands for to ensure proper service. Anyway, I'm a regular there, and like when I leave the room, I leave a $10 bill for the lady who cleans it up. The guy who is my waiter, I leave him a $10 bill under the plate, even though the sign says no tipping, because this is Lynchburg, and if you're poor, you're supposed to be satisfied with $2.75 an hour. So everyone in that hotel, the manager on down, treats me like I own the place. I could do whatever I want. So the phone rings. I said, "Girls in the pool?" Yeah, those curvy girls who are totally naked and they're sucking each other's body parts. And I've been watching it all night on the security TV camera. There's two of them up there. I got it on video. You want to watch? I said, "No, Bob." So it's now coming back to me. I said, "Bob, listen, get room service to send up, a couple of breakfasts and a big pot of coffee and, a 10 Bloody Marys." And he says, "Okay, be right up." So he actually brings them up himself so he can ogle the naked women who attach to each other with bottle parts. And so he goes, "You got to get them out by 9 because that's when the church people will be coming in for brunch. And if they see these girls drunk like this, so can't we go out the back door?" He goes, "Okay, then go out the back door, but it's still, they're going to have to come down the elevator and go through the back part of the lobby. And so you got to get them out of here in the next 40 minutes or so." I said, "Okay, I'll do my best." So, I get the girls to jump in the shower together. I turn on the hot water, turn on the cold water, turn on the hot water, turn on the cold water, have them all drink cups of coffee, and they each get their Bloody Mary and eat whatever little tidbits of breakfast they want, get them dressed, and I kind of march them out the door, out the back door. Next weekend, I go do my same thing. Nothing happened. There was no, didn't hear anything from anybody. Because Lynchburg's small town, I kind of knew everybody. Whenever I move into a town, I get to know everyone. That's my anthropologist self, my socialist self, my sociologist, psychologist self. I want my shamanic self. I want to know everybody, know what their story is. Anyway, so I go back to the bar, Friday, and I've had dinner at the hotel, and I'm satiated, and I'm sitting there, and it's about 6:30. It's a spring evening, and still light, and there's nobody in there yet, and this big round guy comes in with a very nice suit, not a J.C. Penney suit. But he's got two guys on either side. They look like, FBI agents or Secret Service guys, but they have a more crumply suit. And they're wearing the, black glasses, a little thing in their ear. And anyway, the guy walks up to me and looks at me. And on my table, I have a tablecloth with stars and half moons. And I have the King James Bible. I have Joseph Campbell's myth of the hero. I have Homer's Iliad. I have, Melville's Moby Dick. I have Dickens' Christmas Carol. I have a number of other, interesting theological books. And I have my book of runes and a book on astrology and a book on tarot cards. So this guy looks at me, and I have a kind of mirrored ball, not a crystal ball, but a mirrored ball, because I got a ton of mirrored balls. I used to do discos in New York, so I had thousands of mirrored balls, all different sizes. Anyway, so I got this, volleyball size mirrored ball. And the guy walks in, and he looks at me and goes, "Someone told me you're the devil." And I look at him, and I never met Jerry Falwell, but I saw him on TV, and I said to him, "Well, someone told me that you're Jerry Falwell." And he kind of chuckled. I said, "Why don't you sit down, Jerry? You want a drink?" And he kind of looks around, and there's nobody in there, and he goes, "Yes, I would like a drink." And so he gets himself, I said, "What do you like?" He goes, "I like single malt." So I wave the lesbian barkeep over and I say, Doris, two of your best single malts, and I'll have a ginger ale back. You want it back, Jerry? Oh, yes, I'll have a ginger ale back too. So sitting there, and we're talking theology, and we're talking Old Testament, we're talking Hebrew, we're talking Mesopotamia, Samaria, Babylon. Anyway, so we go on and on and on. And he goes, obviously, you're not the devil. I said, thanks, Jerry. Sounds like you have an open mind. He goes, well, I do. And he goes, back in the day, and he's drinking his single malt, and he goes, back in the day, I used to be quite the firebrand. My father was a well-known preacher, but I took his money. That little airport out there, that's Jerry Falwell, that's named after my dad. And I used to fly all over America to go to nightclubs and discos and go to Las Vegas and gamble. Anyway, he said, so I sowed my wild oats. And then when my father died and I came back and I kind of realized I had to take over the family business, I decided I was going to make some serious money. So I was going to marry media, politics, and religion and call it the moral majority. And he did. And he became a gazillionaire. And he was smart. This guy was smart. So anyway, he would come visit me every now and then, and he would keep his kids out of this place because he knew what was going on. And we became fast friends because, meaning I never told anyone this story until he was dead by years, I never told anyone that, Jerry Falwell's my friend. No, I didn't tell anyone in Lynchburg that I knew Jerry Falwell. And so he would come in when there was nobody downtown and there was no one in the bar, and we would talk. And then after about a year or so after, and I was still living in Lynchburg, he said, listen, I'm building a diner. I love diner food. There's no real good diner, so I'm building a diner on the campus of LU. We're really doing good. I've gotten a lot of investors because of this moral majority thing, and I'm getting people, and I'm a nonprofit, so I'm getting people giving me millions, multi-millions of dollars to build up this school as a political base. And I said, well, good for you, Jerry. So he builds a diner. It's called Doc. I told him the story about how I was a scholar for many years and how I ran social research programs and all the. He said, well, what degrees do you have? And I started naming them. And he was the one who said, man, you have more degrees than a thermometer. And I said, well, they don't really, I don't really flash them around. He goes, what do you mean? And he goes, well, I was never scholastic. I didn't matriculate. I got these degrees because people needed me to have them. So I would be at X, Y, or Z university working for somebody, some other entity that was giving this college a lot of money, like gazillions of dollars to do this research. And, and they would go, oh, wow, for you to really do this here, you need a master's in social work, or you need a degree in this or a degree in that. And they would just open up a drawer, fill out a piece of paper, and hand me the degree. I thought that was pretty amusing. So what does Jerry Falwell do? He gives himself a doctorate in theology from LU. Anyway, that's why I love Jerry Falwell, because he didn't take himself too serious. And at the bottom of the line, he truly wanted to serve God in his own kind of way. And he was the sheriff in town, and he could do whatever he wanted, and he mostly did good. And that's one of my little concepts. When I was a fireman, I joined the firehouse because 80% of the people in the firehouse were women. The captain was a woman, the lieutenant was a woman, all the real serious firefighters were women, because they were all on the Ithaca, New York's, fire department, employed, and Ithaca wanted to, it's a liberal town, so they wanted to show that they had more women in their, cops and firemen and whatever, their institutions and municipalities than almost anybody. but it was still a boys' club. So these girls had the training and smarts and experience. So there was a little town just outside of Varna, outside of Ithaca, named Varna, and these girls ran the Varna Fire Department, and I lived across the street from it. And I saw all these pretty girls going to this place. Had no idea it was a fire department. Went in there and said, "Ladies, what's going on here?" And they said, "Oh, there's a volunteer fire department. You want to sign up?" And it was like, 28 women and 6 guys. And 4 of the guys were teenage boys because in New York State at the time, if you were a volunteer fireman or an EMT while you were in high school, New York State would pay for your college. And Cornell would put you through it, right? So that's why those boys were there. And there was 2 old guys who, just like me, I wasn't that old. They were not even my age now, but I was in my 30s. They were probably in their 50s. They just wanted to get out of the house. Anyway, so I joined up, and because I lived across the street, they sent me off to EMT school and fire truck driving school. So I got trained because I lived across the street. So whenever there was a call, I just kind of walked across the street, started up the truck, and would meet everybody at wherever the call was. Instead of waiting for people to show up, everybody just kind of showed up, on the scene in their cars. So, that's how. Oh, yes. What I was getting at was the hero. So Joseph Campbell's book on the myth of the hero is about how there's 2 types of people who are heroes. People who step up because no one else is going to do what needs to be done, and they're the person who does, right? Then there are people who are junkies for being the hero, for the adrenaline of it. And the thing about that firehouse was 80, all the women were there for the adrenaline of doing it. Cutting someone out of a burning car. And that's mostly what we did. We did car wrecks because our house was right on the corner of where 2 interstates crossed each other, and whoever built them had the, to miss, stupidity to, instead of building a clover leaf, they just made an X, one highway going this way. So big trucks would run over little cars going the other way. So, we were scraping people off the road at least 5-6 times a day. Oh, no, a week. And we were really good at getting people out and keeping them alive till we get them to the emergency room. And the thing I liked about my job there was, I didn't do it during the day because I had a real job. So did the girls. So, people knew not to really, other fire departments responded, from 9 in the morning till about 5 in the afternoon. And from 5 to 9, we responded to the calls in our zone. But we were almost in the city of Ithaca, so and there was 2 other little towns that were right next to each other in our county. Anyway, so what I really enjoyed was, so my job, I was not the mechanic, with the jaws of life and all that stuff. I drove the truck, I, parked the truck, made it safe, put the legs down and started everything running. So we had pneumatic tools and electricity, and the lines were paid out and charged, and the other guys, the gals, would chop the car up and drag the guy out. And my job was, I was the person who figured out what was really wrong with the guy, and would call on the radio to the emergency room. Okay, this is what is, the BP, the this, that. He's got internal this. Without an X-ray machine, you can almost tell what's wrong with people if you're well trained in triage and crisis medical care, which I was. And the way it worked, we would take them straight into past, depending on how screwed up these people were. But if they were really bad, we wouldn't go through the triage. We'd already done that out on, on the bus and out on the street. We would take them to wherever they needed to go immediately, either the operating room, the X-ray room, or whatever. And I would pretty much be the guy who made the human contact with the individual, keeping them alive. Hey, stay with me. What do you think about keeping them distract from dying, right? And take them all the way into where they were in the operating room, and then those folks would take over. And I found that very rewarding, and it wasn't the adrenaline rush that my fellow firefighters really lived off of. It was the human connection, and what I was really studying at that time was death and the experience of death, because I had already died 4 times and then been revised, and I had a lot of experiences on the other side. So I wanted a little feedback from other folk. So I was keeping them distracted by talking about it, right? And all the while keeping their blood pressure up and their IVs working and all that kind of stuff. So and there was 2 other people one was a nurse and one was a doctor. So they were like more the mechanics of keeping the guy alive. I was more the shaman keeping them alive. And that's how, people looked at me as, right? And in the hospital too. And so I really enjoyed that experience. So in my little experience of going to the hospital, since I've died from having diabetes and come back, and they wanted to cut my legs off. They wanted to do all kinds of crazy shit to me, and I said no. I had enough knowledge of no, because you had diabetes, you're 100 or 200 pounds overweight. They cut your legs over, you're dead in 6 months, because by unbalancing your body, the rest of your body kind of goes into shock, and you're dead. And that's okay, because the hospitals make a lot of money out of that, and then you're not bothering them anymore. So that's how all of these institutions are and have been from the beginning. I mean, beginning like a million years ago. You have to realize, folks, that if you think that the world is running, which are cells, these bodies are prison cells. And why we want to have sex so much is that's one little step getting closer to being united with the collective consciousness. That's what orgasm's about. Like, oh, you let go of all about you, and So my life's experience has always been one of seeing, the curtain and pushing it away and looking behind it. And yes, sometimes I get distracted. Like, I'm a bag of water. I'm a meat puppet like anybody else. I just try to, like Buddha said, stay awake and try to live in this moment, right? To feel the experience. Okay, it's 43 minutes and 53 seconds. So let's see. What's some of the hi Al and friends, hello, LOL. Come on, guys. Let's don't drive, sleep in a car near a hospital. Yeah, well, you got to do what you got to do. And come on, guys, what are some? Let's have some real responses to my little story here. Come on, it's 44 minutes and 24 seconds. Come on, let's hear something. There's 4 of you there, So, and that's what I want to endure. I want to endure a live chat should be you guys chatting about what I'm talking about. How you feel, what my stories manifest in your feelings, how you think. Like when I say I don't believe in anything, I don't believe in any religion, any God, anything. All I do is have faith in universal love, and not sex, but unconditional forgiveness, platonic love, the love of Thomas Merton. Have any of you out there read Thomas Merton? I had him as a teacher. At least as a little boy, he came into my life through my mother. And along with John Steinbeck, who was my second cousin. He would come, and my cousin Horst from Germany. I had a lot of amazing mentors all my life. And I'm trying, that's why I'm Sensei Albab. I'm trying to be that for you. Just got here, Al. We do live in an illusion game. Rudolph Steiner's, yes, yep, good old Rudolph Steiner. I'm down with Rudolph. Wish that Rudolph Steiner looked really centered. Yep. I tell you about a guy. Oh, the guy who discovered orgone energy, Wilhelm Reich. Anybody out there know about Wilhelm Reich? Here's a guy who discovered how that, humanity's biggest problem was that we were out of balance. Duh. That's what the word disease means. The dis-ease, meaning the lack of ease. Our body's supposed to be in ease, in balance, right? And all our neuroses are about being imbalanced, right? Worrying about crap that doesn't matter. Anyway, Wilhelm Reich made this thing called the orgone box, which was basically wool, copper, cardboard, wool, right? And you got inside it, and it would collect orgone energy, which was the energy of orgasm, but the energy, not the orgasm itself. And that's why guys who are Hindus are all about not coming, not ejaculating, to have sex for 18 hours without coming, because it collects orgone energy, and you, like, all of your chakras open up and you have all these amazing insights. Or as grandfather David the Hopi Elder told me, are you having a vision yet? He would put me through all these things, not orgasmic, but not even stressful, but spiritual experiences. Just like when I was in Brazil, and I was living with, I was the first white guy that this tribe out in the Amazon saw, and they didn't need an Alaska. They didn't need to do any drugs. These guys were there, and being with them put you in that state of mind. And then we would, travel the cosmos. We didn't need drugs. And I keep asking you guys to meditate. Breathe 20% more than you normally do, and breathe out 30%. You will go places that no drugs can take you. You will have insights. And when I was, a apprentice shrink, because once I got into it and I started helping people, and my superiors were saying, "Wow, you're really good at this," but listen, hey, you don't have to heal them right away. We want to keep them on the hook for a couple of years so we can buy that Jaguar and send a kid off to college. And I'm saying, no. Let's see, are you aware of how music and TV creators are? Of course, media. What is it? Why is it invested in? Because it manipulates the public. That this little cell phone. I mean, 5G is going to turn everyone into a vegetable, because it's going to be transmitted on the same frequency as your brain. Like some people, their fillings, they can hear radio, right? Well, man, this shit's going to go straight into our brains unless you elevate yourself. That's what, evolution is a joke. But ascension is what it's about. And you do it with baby steps. You don't snap your fingers and become Jesus Christ. No. And that's why we come back, because we have unlimited attempts at ascending. And if you descend too much, well, then you're broken up into just component parts of chi and, turned into asphalt. And that's what hell is. And but coming back, is this baby step, breathing deep, 20% more, and then breathing out 30% more. The more you can breathe out, the easier it is to breathe in. And when you're doing that, you're inhaling the prana and chi, which animates us. Otherwise, we're just a bag of water with some, trace elements, and that's the alchemy, changing trace elements into gold. And we are the trace elements, and the gold is our ascension into our higher self. These things are pretty common sense, pretty straight up, but everyone's so distracted by that new, pair of clothes they want, or shoes, or house, or car, or what their job is, or their boyfriend or girlfriend, or their kids, or all of those things. Those are distractions. You know, those are actually mechanisms for us to ascend. All of the trials and tribulations that I've had through my life. I mean, I go, oh, it's so terrible, blah, blah, blah. No, I see them as, interesting experiences. I see them as tools. When I slipped back into hedonism for 10 years, yeah, hey, I enjoyed every piece of chocolate cake I had. I enjoyed making really rich people squirm. I loved helping people in the strangest of ways. And and it got me out of the house too. And my dogs loved it. They loved my dogs were the biggest hedonists there were. They loved, because part of my contract was, okay, you got to put me in a 5-star hotel that has 24-hour room service, and they allow my dogs to stay in the room, and they not only that, they have a doggy place where they can get massages and be groomed and all of that and pampered if I can't have them with me. So, I did that for 10 years. The dogs loved it, and I loved it, and we had a great time. Of course, I gained 220 pounds and nearly died of that hedonism. But that was a lesson. Stop doing that. you know? To those people who are doing the growing. And yes, exactly. Great job of throwing everyone off into material world, providing the masses. Yes, right, exactly. Keeping the the morons on the farm, keeping them working, keeping them distracted. Because I tell you something, it would only take in every congressional district in the United States, if 500 people were to come together, not be a Democrat or Republican, but like the Tea Party. The Tea Party was brilliant. It showed the way. Those people made politicians freak out because they went to, when they'd have city, when they'd have the meetings of their constituency, which normally nobody showed up for. In the Tea Party, there'd be 100 people there. And 100 people could make a congressman do whatever they wanted, They would show up in D.C. When I was working as a research guy, and most of the moneyed folk who I worked for owned the politicians, and I would have to go talk to them, and I would go and talk to the people who were the lobbyists, and because I'm a strategist, and I never saw any representative of a constituency. There may be one or two people, or some guy was hot about something. That was it, not the masses on the ramparts, and just 100 people would get your average politician worried. So that's why I want to take this on the road. That's why I want to have the carnival, because I want to go into every town and spunk up everyone. That's why I need about 10, 15 people who love to make music, to dance, to perform, to read poetry, to, who know how to handle bees and know how to grow food and are really passionate about, all of the aspects of the mechanics of government, and make it fun and interesting, and start things called that's called the Traveling Video Art Circus, and I want to leave in each town a freely inquiring society where there'll be a group of the people from that town who get inspired by us and will go rattle the chain of their politician. and we could have free healthcare for everyone. We could have everything we need. But if we just keep our faces in the screen and, just think about ourselves and through our people. So it's 12:48, give or take, and I've been on live for 56 minutes and 28 seconds. So I'm going to round it off to an hour. And I'm going to come back at 6 p.m., okay? And I want to, all of you 6 or 10 people who have been cruising through here, go get 5 or 6 people to come on this chat. Go get, think about what I'm saying and write down, either on your screen, on your keyboard, or like I do, I have a real passion for composition books. These things right here. Oh, I have a nice little small composition book. The composition is almost worn off there. I have big composition books. And I kind of write the stuff down, in my head because, I don't want to carry, I only have, one computer. It's heavy, it's big. It needs to be connected to electricity or battery or something where I can just use a pencil or a pen in my composition book and then go back to my computer or go to the library and write, So, let's see. Remember, I read you something out of this yesterday, which is my curriculum of my course, right? And I read to you about love. Without love's intent, we are stuck in a world where we are left with a nagging question. Who are we? Where did we come from? And why is life so unfair? Our worldview in this linear, two-dimensional world of separated robot senses of fear, greed, selfish hate, ignorance, and prejudicial thinking is then passed through a timeline of patriarchal history of a unknowable Father God who needs are administered and motivated by power-hungry orthodoxy of male, politically moneyed, bloodthirsting order of parasites. That's all our religions and governments. And that's not how it's supposed to be. We're supposed to be all our relations. It's 59 minutes and 9 seconds. All our relations. That's everybody 9 generations from the past, our ancestors, and everybody 9 generations in the future, all our grandchildren. And every other entity on this planet, every fungus, every insect, every animal, they're all our relations. And we can't just kill them or wipe them out just for the bottom line. We were put on this planet not to be businessmen. We were put here to be co-creators with love. Love is God. Love is the only God. And love wants our company. And that's why we're here, to co-create with love. So, come on back at 6 p.m. with more folk, and let's co-create love. I love you. Love you all, my family of adepts.